think my standards for metal are far too high. I mean, maybe they should be. If I'm going to be judging harrowing scowls over dense guitar riffs, it may as well be interesting to listen to. Most of the time I find myself enjoying what musicianship and aggression there can be on an extreme metal album before they hammer the same thing over and over again, and for something so finger horns hardcore, I'm feeling concerningly bored. Call me pretentious and a little bit too wussy for the genre, but this is why a nice dense atmosphere or complete genre subversion tends to suffice quite nicely. Horrendous Idol is a case of an album being too run-of-the-mill for my tastes, and I almost feel bad saying that, because seemingly the album is doing a lot more than just what I think it is, showing enough dizzying technical skill to make my shoelaces tie themselves into double bows. But within minutes, all of that progressive twirling starts to ironically sound entirely one note. Well, not one note, in fact many notes, but oh, you get it. To be honest, this album is rather respectable in form anyways. It's too easy to make a jab like, this band is horrendous, in more than one way, ha ha ha, then go off and come to a copy of Animal Collective's bootleg demo scrawled into a cassette tape. As such, I don't want to demerit this album's impressive features that wow me for the first track before fading out of my interest for the next few. It's genuinely amazing to hear a bass guitar so prominent in a metal mix. Oh, you unsung instrumental underdog, you. Though I have to ask, is it just me, or is it in the metal genre contract to have drum sounds with the same impact of tennis ball cannon versus cardboard fort? Usually albums with this pet peeve of mine redeem themselves with little atmospheric and songwriting quirks. Idol seems to be written as if to have tense guitar melodies floating in a space of angsty ennui. That said, the pauses on Divine Anhedonia are a nice touch, and Golgothan Tongues is beefy and features tall butcher levels of the stakes being high. The music on Idol sounds so much like the world is falling apart in how it's composed and performed, but the production feels way too clean to admit that. It's like scribbling a pirate's treasure map on flat white sheets of printing paper. There's so much noodling on this album and not enough broth, which results in a particularly dry bowl, a 5 out of 10 if you will. So you might be asking yourself, Ricky, since you didn't like something clearer and melodic, surely you'd like a record like Imperial Triumphant's Vile Luxury then? Something gritty and cacophonous and with only rare moments of sparsity? Well, I mean, that's fair enough to say. The album has a very good set-out atmosphere and focuses a lot on painting a visceral picture most of the time, also squirting in blobs of free jazz solos like a tube of tomato puree. This should be something I absolutely adore, and yet I probably found it less likable than the previously mentioned. You see, from the moment that those trumpets blare at the beginning of Vile Luxury, the album's unique narrative of representing the dilapidated and chaotic life in New York City is one that immediately strikes fear in me. It's a powerful means of beginning the album. So when I then get shoved spadefuls of smelly dirt for the next 55 minutes with a few recordings of cars in the street scattered in between like a lucky dip game with MP3 files, I start to feel a little bit of a slight ache in my forehead. To its credit, the whirlwind of disorienting noise is well executed on tracks like The Filth, but it just gets tiring to listen to, as if I've turned the record on and thought, oh, that's dense and overwhelming, I can't wait to hear this one for the next 6 minutes. From a technical perspective, it even sounds as if the band are playing absolutely anything, which sort of is the spirit of an avant-garde jazz project. Don't mind the restrictions and get to the conflictions, but if you're going to do all of that aimlessly and in a rapidly exhausting manner, you may as well mix it properly. Chernobyl blues is a nightmare. See, I can't really categorize what kind of metal I like to hear usually, it's more of a case-by-case basis, and this case makes me need an ice pack, 4 out of 10. It's a little bit like metal's answer to John Zorn, in that I can respect the concept, but it sucks.